You were the first sponsored parkour athlete in America.
Back in the day, I think it was the same. Like everybody wanted the opportunity, but it was more of a dream because there was no infrastructure for it.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Inner West Hemp. Be sure to visit them online for all your CBD needs. This is the same company that I use daily, from tinctures to rub-ons to CBD gummies. Some of their products are even USADA approved. Be sure to use the code JAMP for 15% off at checkout. What's up, guys? Today's guest is an owner of Tempest Freerunning and the host of the Red Bull Art of Motion. Please welcome to the JAMCast, Mr. Frosty Fresh. What up, man?
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, this is surreal to me because as much as we've worked on Art of Motions together, we haven't been on screen at the same time, really, very minimal.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of this, we're calling in. I mean, I'm more used to you over the mic like this. Oh, hey, Travis, how's it going up there? Can you see anything? No, me neither.
I know. And I think that's one of the funniest things that only you and I and Ed and a bunch of people know is we actually have a really bad view of the action when we're commentating a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I realize we're seeing what people see for the most part. We get their perspective, and I really do like the chance to sort of enjoy that. But I'm man, I felt like I was gonna have the best seat in the house. The time you're facing away from it. This in Matera this year, we were in a cafe underneath the course. They were jumping around on top of us, and we're just sitting there. Although it was, I'd say that those were some of the best croissants I ever had during a show. They're just baking them in the restaurant we were doing it in.
Just eating and commenting.
Yeah, right. Great cappuccinos too.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think the best seat in the house is a job that we both have also done, which is being the live MC, because you can run around and be in the mix, you know?
Oh yeah, literally people are jumping over your head. I remember in Santorini, everybody was going over the archway, right in the center of the course. And so I just hit up everybody and so I could be all right, what are you going to do here? What are you throwing down? What's going on? And then I just know where to stand and just see it happen right over your head. Jesse LaFleur, lunar eclipse. He's spinning. You can watch it in the video. And I made sure I was I know this is going to be, everybody's going to retweet this shit up right in here. And I'm right underneath it, yeah, look at me. I got my shorts on.
Oh, it's too good, man. And I'm not going to lie. I actually do prefer the TV broadcast, even though we have a worse seat in the house, because I'd say one of the hardest things about being an MC in a foreign country is trying to keep people amped up and keep the energy going for 3 hours live when half of them don't understand you.
Well, oh yeah. And that's the thing is I realize so much that people, they connect with your sort of your frequency, how you're saying something more than what you say. Yeah. So you can go on the mic and just hold it and just be hey, hey, and it's you don't even need words. People know when you're yeah, and you just go like this, and then they go, no, they know, oh, this is when I'm supposed to freak out. Awesome. Oh, thanks. But it's a cool thing. They're both very different positions. You're right. And I do think I like the commentary spot when you get a chance to really analyze and review and help people understand what's going on. But there's also something really amazing about the energy of the crowd. It feels more like you're competing or performing in that sense. And there's definitely a rush to that feeling. And it's, one of the cool things that I think people forget is how important that role can be. Because a lot of times, if you have a bad host or no host, no MC up there, really getting people going, not only does the event not run the same way, the audience doesn't connect with the competitors in the same way. You really are a big part of that bridge between this huge gap of these people sitting in their seats and the people up there just laying it all on the line.
100%, man. And a lot of people have always asked me this over the years, what do you think about Frosty hosting? You used to host. And I'm dude, Frosty's the best. I'm the one that literally in 2013, I was stuck on a movie and I was supposed to go to Santorini. And I literally called you one day and was dude, I need you to fill in for me, dog, because I'm stuck on this movie and there's only one person I can think of that could keep the energy up and go host. And I think that was 2013 that you went out there to Santorini, right?
Yeah, man. It was, and honestly, I cannot thank you enough. It was this crazy series of events leading up to what was definitely a life-changing and long-term dream of mine going out there. And I think it was so cool to have that feeling of when I got the call from you. I remember you were just like, you're of course out there like hustling hard. You got too many opportunities going on, and I'm like just fresh out, just like trying to be like, okay, yeah, I think I could like clear my schedule for that. But it was so cool, and it's so cool that this community has stayed so tight, where we really do have people who are a part of everybody, part of like everything that is happening all the time, being the ones sharing with everybody, being the ones who are, not just competing, but like judging and hosting and creating these events now. It's really cool to see how much things have grown, and it's because we help each other and we support each other.
Hell yeah, man. No, it's been amazing to see, man. And like I said, there was no one that I could even see fit for the job. Like I think since then, like Jesse did a great job emceeing, and we've had other people step into it. But like literally at the time, it wasn't even a question in my mind. I was literally like, dude, there's only one guy that could take this over. And more than anything, I don't know if I've ever had this discussion with you, but like I grew up watching you and literally somewhat idolizing you as being like, partially Asian in the parkour scene for so long, and you were one of the few. And I feel like a lot of people forget about these things because they see what you're doing nowadays. But dude, you were one of the original guys I've watched. I know you're part of the original jams in the US. You're first sponsored parkour athlete in America, the chief parkour officer for Assassin's Creed. Like, bro, let's just go down the resume,
Somebody downloaded my PDF. Yeah, dude, I really appreciate that, man. It's definitely a crazy thing. Even just it's funny, on my walk this morning, I kind of sneak out to do like a little quarantine walk this morning. I was your podcast, JAMCast with Pasha, and it was so nuts to just think about how different things were 10 years ago. Now for me, almost 20 years ago when I started. Like I think it's been like 19 years for me now since I got in this. It's so crazy to think about the things that we were talking about and dreaming about really being something now. And now literally, if I'm honest, like we're starting to try and fight against some of the stuff that we were dreaming about. I remember like talking to my friends about parkour being in the Olympics, and now I'm like, excuse me, Olympics, back the F off, yo. Slow your roll. We're not there yet. Like let us have some like regional competitions first, and then you can come and throw some gold medals at us. Which is nuts to think that somebody who's been involved in this so long, who's put so much in this would want to wait on something like that. But for me, it's all this community and this sport, this art. It's really come from the people that do it, building it up the right way and putting that care and love into everything they're doing. And that's what's made it such a powerful force in the world today. I mean, you look at the way that the world has absorbed parkour culture before parkour and freerunning culture even existed. They're already putting it in movies, and now it's already the most viral sport on the internet. Yep. Short of mukbang, if you want to consider that I don't know if you think of that competitive or not.
It's entertaining. I don't know if it's competitive, but yeah.
Yeah. So we're still safe for now. Once kittens start competing in something, it's all over.
Yeah, man. It's so cool. And I mean, like I've seen the promos coming out soon. We got a bunch of the homies that are on the Ultimate Tag Show about to come out on Fox, which is like super mainstream. But even, preceding all of those things, you've been a part of everything from, Ninja Warrior. You competed obviously on Jump City back in the day when you were pre-Tempest, which is even crazier to think about. And I mean, all the way back to everything. Like parkour has been like a huge part of your life. I think one of the things kids are so lucky with nowadays is there's so many gyms around the country and the world that they can literally start parkour as their first sport. Like I just had Noah Dorjina Man on, and she actually started parkour by going to classes. And I'm like, that's crazy. And now correct me if I'm wrong, but like you used to do parkour back in Traverse City, but then you actually, part of the reason why you looked up your college, Columbia, was to be closer to like the Chicago scene, right? With all the guys out there.
Yeah. I mean, I had the first guys that I met outside of my state, the only ones I really knew of that were doing it as early as I was were these guys in Chicago. Actually, the Cousins brothers.
Cloud, baby.
Sounds like a movie. But yeah, the Cousins brothers were really talented dudes just out of Chicago, and the Chicago scene actually was so good when I moved there, because they have so many parks. The city actually mandated all along the lake and the river fronts would always be public parks. So there's all these huge stretches of open area, and it's a hugely architecturally based city. They have amazing architecture schools there. So there's tons of campuses, all with really unique layouts. And throughout the city, it just built a really good community. It's very connected. It's easily accessible. Public transportation is awesome. Police are very cool. It was a really great experience and a great place, I think, for coming up. You know, when I was first starting off, because it ended up being that I just left school and started traveling, and being in an international hub like that, I not only got to go and train in different places, but a lot of people ended up getting layovers there and coming training with me, and it ended up being awesome. The only reason I left was that I knew I could stay there, and then I would have just settled in the Midwest, and I wanted to see and do more.
That's crazy, man. And so I got to ask the question that I'm sure a lot of people have asked you before, but I just want our audience to hear it. So obviously, I know Ryan Cousins as Cloud back in the day. Andrew is Ando. Where did Frosty Fresh come in? Did you already have that name before you met those guys, or was that a name that was developed out there?
No, I got the nickname Frosty in, I think, somewhere like 7th grade. It's like way back then, and it was, I'd like to romanticize the story to some extent now, but really the honest truth is we were working on a school project, like an algebra project, and we were coming up with like her song, and I just tried to imagine the coolest that I could think of, and in my imagination it was this guy Frosty, and I remember doing like a photo shoot in the snow, like we just like building this idea of this guy, and I was not a really cool kid. I was super nerdy and very awkward, and just sometimes really loud and sometimes really quiet, and it's just like, well, if I just chose what a cool person would be like, I'd just name Frosty, and after that, I think using that name, it was more of just a way for me to start to be the person that I imagined I could be in my head.
That's crazy. I always wanted to know exactly the full backstory, I guess, on that. So that's really funny that it's almost like a self-proclaimed name, right?
Yeah, it's like the lamest way to call yourself a cool guy. But now, you know what? I think it builds an opportunity for yourself, because every time you introduce yourself to somebody with a name like Frosty, it sort of sets a bar that you have to rise to. Like you either have to be that cool, or like a drug dealer or something. I don't know.
Exactly. That's hilarious.
It's nuts. Like you end up in the middle of something, and people are talking to you, and at some certain point, you go on TV, you use that name, you go on the internet, people just know that. But when you're in the real world dealing with real people, you get to decide who you are in every moment, and I just like to set the standard high for myself.
Yeah, man. Now that's crazy, man. And it's so surreal to look back on that, like how the scene has changed so much. Like kids these days can be exposed to parkour by seeing clips on YouTube, Instagram, being invited to a gym by a friend of theirs. I heard you were introduced to it by seeing it on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah, because we didn't even have YouTube, man. I wasn't. Exactly. There were no tutorials. There was Ripley's Believe It or Not, which I had to wait like 3 days to catch a rerun of, because my martial arts teacher told me about it. And then when I did, I was blown away. We went out that day with our little, big old like DV camera and just tried to jump off some stuff. And that was the way we did things back then. I remember even when stuff started to get out there, when more people started to know about it, like trying to upload a file, like a real player file,
yes,
to like a website, so someone could go to a forum and there would be a link where I would describe how I felt about making this video, because you couldn't put a clip of it. And then people just had to trust me and download like 15-minute long Linkin Park laced videos.
Oh my God.
But, that's how how things were. Yeah, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and then just a couple of friends. And from there, it was more, I think it was more about convincing people that this was a thing to do. Like, I was doing it, I loved doing it, and then it was first just get more of my friends to do it. And then it was like, let's get more people in my town. Like, I know a guy who can do a backflip. Let's go bring him to hang out with us. And then he's like, oh, I just could do a backflip. I could do other stuff too. You know, and then it was finding people in our state. And we had the first like statewide jam with some dudes from Port Huron. And then the first nationwide jam in New York. You know, I convinced my parents to let me go out to New York. Just like this kid running around being like, yeah, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna meet like 100 random dudes in a park I met online, you know. But that's what I wanted. And then when we had I remember the first international jam in Toronto. That's where I met Mark Turok, who we ended up starting American Parkour.
APK, yep.
And Dana was running the scene up there. I met Drunk Monk and a lot of those guys. There's the whole Montreal scene, a lot of those, you know, Mish and everyone who's been like building it up. But it was so nuts to see 200 people just run through the streets from around the, you know, North America. It was just such a crazy vibe. But that's the way everything felt at the beginning. And now it's funny because you go to a jam and you know, people are still like, they're so cool about things now, especially kids. They're like, oh yeah, you know, so I was like, I'm just going to turn over here. It's like no big deal. I'm like, yo, you don't even know. Like, you just went on your freaking Instagram and saw that somebody had organized this jam, and just randomly on like a Thursday, like 75 people showed up to the pass by to throw down. That's amazing. Like, that a double cork. Like, I used to never even know anybody that could do a cork. It was like a big deal if you like heard about a guy that could do a cork. You're like, oh, I heard he did it outside. Was it on grass? No, man. I heard he did it on dirt. It was really hard though. It was like almost concrete.
How big was the drop too?
Yeah, just like but yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to say kids are spoiled now. I think it's just hard to recognize some of the things you don't know because it's changed over so fast and the world has progressed so quickly. There's so much access to knowledge, to people and community, and to culture. And I think that's the biggest thing that's changed, is that culture just keeps growing and it keeps creating a home for more people.
100%. And now, like, comparative to now, like we talked about, kids can go to a gym, they can look up tutorials online. I mean, there's an encyclopedia of knowledge available to kids. Back then, when you were like at the beginning of the scene, how did you guys continue to improve technique-wise? Like, because there wasn't like a glossary laid out, there wasn't Tempest bands you could go achieve. Like, were you guys just watching other people, leaving it in the forums? Like, how do you think it continued to evolve back then?
I mean, there was definitely a lot of the forum mentality early on, people connecting that way and sort of comparing. But it was more, I think, the way that MMA has changed, from people from different styles taking things and like trying to add them in to create a better version of what they do, to now it's like, you know, you have the George St. Pierre's or whatever, you know, the guys who like train MMA that are starting from the all things place. And that's what you have, these kids coming out of the academies and stuff, you know, coming with those well-rounded basics and then developing their own style. In the past, it was like, okay, well, I'm a martial arts guy, so like I have great parkour rolls, you know, and like, and I'm picking up some of these different moves and adding it in, and then here's the guy who comes from gymnastics, and he's coming, and we're like working on vaults together, and then I can teach him some vaults, and he can teach me how to do, a backflip, and then, you know, you start to build in those things, and it was a really exciting thing because I think it was more about learning and exploring. And so there was a lot of trial and error, you know, a lot of landing on your face and getting kicked out of gymnastics gyms because you were using the equipment wrong. And, you know, and we were just all hustlers. And that's the thing I think I took the most from this whole experience of coming up in this world and watching and helping it grow, is that people are looking for somebody to give them answers or understanding or confidence in something. And so we just stood up and said, like, I'm the best. Like, yeah, I'm a professional. Sponsor me. Like, I'm really good. Yeah, you know what? Let's start a company. Oh, okay, let's make an event. Okay, like, let's like put a logo on some shirts, and now it's something. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't just like a bunch of kids like jumping around on stuff together, it was the start of at least a subculture. And when people felt a community, that community aspect, then they built it themselves. And I tell this to kids all the time when they're talking to me about like starting their brands and stuff. I think it's amazing, but I always say, like, anybody can put a logo on something. You can get a basic anvil tee and throw your name on it, but the real point is figuring out why somebody's going to want to wear that shirt out of any shirt they can wear in the whole world. When somebody puts on something that means something to them. I think actually a great example, and this is not just repping, but Didi's family shirt he did with Tempest, this limited collection. Totally. He did this thing with his mom, and it was like he had loved this process of what he did with her when he was at home, and now he's far away, but he's trying to support her and create this experience. And people connect so well with his story and his connection to his family. They know how much it's important to him. Anyone who sees him, any moment, and that's why I think, it sold out immediately, because everyone's like, yes, please let me support that. And that's the opportunities you want to create. People wanting to be able to be a part of something, it gives them a chance to connect. That's a beautiful thing.
100%. And now, I mean, like you said, you help give advice to kids that are starting up their new brands. I feel like the standard protocol now is start training, make a team with your homies, then start launching clothes with your homies, and then have a YouTube channel. But back then, like before all this happened, and you kind of touched on it, sponsorships right now are so broad and vast. I can name like 100 different kids that have sponsors, quote unquote. But I think it's fair to say that you were the first sponsored parkour athlete in America. And can you kind of just give the kids these days an idea of how that came about and what that entailed comparative to now?
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, I think it was the same. Like, everybody wanted the opportunity, but it was more of a dream because there was no infrastructure for it. Yeah. And part of why I ended up teaming up with Mark Turok and we started APK and the tribe, and that was just to create some structure, one for a community to start building, where there was all these like local chapters of people talking to each other in Denver or in Chicago or Miami. We wanted a place where a hub where they could all connect, but also so that people could see some realism around it. It's like, what are you really offering here? We knew that we were talented in terms of our ability to do something, to go for it. But that's only like the first part of what that skill really needs. And what we really were like, okay, what can we accomplish here? And part of it was giving ourselves a sense of professionalism by taking it seriously, taking ourselves seriously, taking what we were doing seriously. Like, every step of it was like not perfect. Every step was not perfect. And so it was like, okay, but how could we improve this? And by the time we teamed up with first it was a company out of Hong Kong that was just sort of like interested in this, like, oh, this is a cutting edge thing. And we were like, okay, this is not a big sponsorship, but what they can offer is some money to do some cool photo shoots, and then some cool media, shoot some video. And they brought the team together, and then we got, people to come out and do something. We were able to use that to then start talk to somebody who actually had some money. We started talking to 510. 510 was just super into this idea. And that's honestly because they had an advocate within their company that just loved parkour, and he introduced it to the owner, and it was just some guy that had seen one of our videos, and from there I got like an actual sponsorship where they're actually giving me something, sending some money, some shoes, like a little bit, I was like, oh my god, it's like nothing. They were not free-running shoes, they were rock climbing shoes, like with more laces, it was really rough. But from that we're able to get a better sponsorship from K-Swiss that ended up giving us like real pay, like monthly salaries, and enough gear to burn through it and actually wear it. And like that moment that you always dream of, like where they give you they gave us like a gym bag and then put us in the warehouse. And then you're like, oh, this is unreleased stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Like K-Swiss did a whole an unreleased collection of parkour streetwear for their Southeast Asia line that never fully got brought anywhere. But it's just so nuts to see how much they people were ready to invest in it. But parkour had its own sort of little recession, and then it really did get a chance to grow it's from its grassroots level. And so I think I was really fortunate to come in on that early end and get some support right away, so I could make that decision to just commit and really take this seriously, because that's the biggest thing you can do for yourself. You know, if you want people to take you serious, you got to take yourself serious. And if you want to be a hustler, then you got to hustle.
100, man. It's funny, man. The kids these days have, if you say the word 510 or K-Swiss or Kalenjis, the whole new gen has no idea we're talking about shoe game, because now there's so many free running teams made their own shoes. You know, it's like, guys, we had to literally, I remember when Kalenjis were like gold back in the day. I'd calling up my buddies in Europe and being like, can you grab me a pair of Kalenjis? I heard they're the best to wear, because we're all out here wearing 510s and rock climbing shoes, like you said, you know?
Yeah. And it was a big, long streak of, you know, I did shoe testing for all these companies. That was one of my first like little jobs I would get. Like people would just send shoes and be like, see what you think of that. And people had no idea what to put on it. They would be sending like combat boots and stuff, because they're like, because they had no image of it in their head. Yeah. And now slowly this image has like started to form of like what a free runner looks like, what someone who does parkour is, but it's still kind of a malleable thing. It's changing all the time in people's minds, you know. And I think it's cool that we're at a point now where we're starting to see a split. You know, I was talking to one of the other Red Bull hosts in who was it? Ed was talking to me, and he was just like, is there like a big division in the sport between people who wear tight pants and people who wear baggy pants? I was like, yes, you nailed it, you got it. You're like, you figured it out. But it's cool. So I think that's awesome to see people making their own, and you know, the same way you see skateboarding or any other sport as it grows, sort of have, you know, people who find themselves in it, but then also find different aspects of it to connect to, and it's growing in different ways. And that's why you see things like tag really appealing to the masses, which is cool. But then also, you know, things are getting weirder. I love stuff like what Move Mag is doing. They're awesome new, you know, publication getting out there that's really developing the culture itself of what it is. And one of the reasons I'm really supporting, you know, competitions that come from the sport itself. NAPC has been doing an awesome job. Unfortunately, SPL had to postpone the season. And Art of Motion, I think, has been one of the best over the history of the sport, of actually, you know, having people from the sport creating it, judging it, making it everything it is. They're a great example of how a company can get involved in something and actually let it be what it is. And that's why they're, you know, they see the value of free running. That's why they're sponsoring more and more free runners around the world every year, because they recognize that people connect with what we do, even if they don't do it themselves. And I mean, that's a valuable thing. Human connection is a valuable thing.
100. Now that's crazy, man. And besides the sponsorships and stuff like that, I feel like one of the other major milestones within parkour history that the new gen doesn't know about, and so I want to ask you about it, is the Madonna Confessions tour. I feel and I feel like people be like, oh, so what do you mean Madonna? What does that have to do with parkour? And for kids that don't know, Madonna was actually one of the first ones to literally integrate parkour into a live stage show and actually make it part of the actual production of her concerts, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, her music video that had Sebastian Foucan in it, one of the founders of Freerunning, he really, it was like before Casino Royale, it was like the thing that everyone pointed to. And then, you know, after Casino Royale, now it's like the Office.
Jump. Yeah, exactly. It's the Office now.
That's the progression. But that, the music video really paved the way for that tour to happen. And it was a huge experiment. You know, I think there's people like Madonna who love to be on the sort of forefront of what's going on in the world. And she definitely can smell trends. She was actually obsessed with getting Oleg on her tour, but there was all these legal difficulties getting him into the US, which is why he only ended up going on in the European
League,
and then joining him for that. But yeah, I mean, it was hard because it had never been really introduced in that way. I think people had done acrobatics, they had done climbing, they'd done stuff like this on stage shows. So everyone was sort of like, why is this any different? But at that point, the sport was still very raw. So, you know, I'm gonna be totally honest. I was not the best, most qualified person for this, but it had nothing to do with the skill, almost, because it was just like raw energy on stage that they were trying to put to a beat and figure it out. So people like Levi Muhlenberg, who ended, you know, he's one of the other members of Tempest, and he was great on the show because he ended up being perfect. He has great musicality. He's a musician too, and ended up really his moves were so straight laced that they loved him. They could just put him here and he would do the things. And then Oleg ended up really matching it well. But for some of us, it was really just a process of figuring it out. I remember auditioning right after Zin the Urban Ninja.
Yes, shout out Zin.
Yeah, and it was nuts. Like that dude, they cast him and then let him go the next day. Just changed their minds. And I went on the tour for like 4 weeks, you know, when they finish out the rest of the U.S. tour, because a bunch of the dancers who were doing it got hurt. And Sebastian ended up breaking his wrist and then having to change out a big part of the show. There was just a lot of injuries. There's a lot of difficulties in doing a show that big. You know, we had like huge air rams like launching us, and then the floors that we would be shot out into the audience, you know, and actually run through this stage. And they're like, it's all like random lighting and random roulette, and you don't know when somebody dropped their Diet Pepsi. You know, it's hectic, but it was a really amazing experience, and I think it really showed me again like how professional performances. Oh, I'm hot shit! Like I know what I'm doing, and then you show up on stage and you're auditioning for Madonna. That was my first real audition ever. You know, I'd never been done a live casting. Trying to be real cool on this, inner stage, and it's because you realize like, oh, a lot of people come into this. 1,000 people make this show happen every night, and they move it to another, relying on you just as much as you're relying on them to make everything not just work but worth it for all those people. And that was the most inspiring part of that whole experience, is just how much people can appreciate the things that you do, even if they don't know like every little detail of every dancer or every lighting thing or whatever. The experience that all comes together around it just gives so much to those people that are there. Like I've witnessed that energy being just like exploding out from an audience of people, and that's a really, really cool thing that we get the chance to do.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's crazy. Like off the back end of just talking about like Madonna being your first in-person audition and exposing you to like these live shows and audiences and stuff like that. One of the other things that back in the day really helped, I guess, put you on the forefront of the parkour community as far as recognition and being like a household name was obviously Survivor China, where at one point you were the youngest contestant. Now there's been like 18-year-old that's gone on, but back then 20-year-old Frosti went on Survivor China. And what even made you decide to put yourself out there and be on a reality show competition?
Well, there had been some other shows that had come up, and you get, once you start auditioning for stuff, you can start to hear about castings and stuff that's going on. And I hadn't really wanted to do some of the stuff. I think that there had been somebody talking about Big Brother, and like somebody was just because they were out there and they were interested in trying to get something new and fresh. But somebody actually called Mark Turok, who was my manager at the time, and was just saying, do you do this like parkour? Love to sorry, my AirPods giving out on me. He was like, I love to survive in the woods. He like really wanted to go do this show.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, but you have been Asian. And I just remember him calling me like all pissed. Like, yeah, so they want Asians, and they also, he's so pissed. He's like, they kind of want artsy types too. And I was like, yes, I'm in. And that was great because I started doing the casting from that. I made a video and I submitted it, and I was like, look, I even took the fact that I was underage and I turned it to a positive. I was like, look, I'll be honest, I never watched a show because I saw the first season, and after that, it didn't appeal to me because there's nobody like me on it. And you have a lot of regular, everyday people on your show, but me, I'm just like something a little extraordinary. And I think it did it because they were like, okay, they wanted to revamp it, they wanted to turn it up, and it's something that I feel like is really valuable for people to think about. That rules, for the most part, are arbitrary, and if you have a good reason why the rules shouldn't be applicable, you can put that out there, and you never know what's going to happen. And I'm not saying you should go like start running around the quarantine and like parties and stuff, but I'm saying like you should think for yourself and really see like, well, maybe you can make this disadvantage turn into an advantage. And being underage and applying for that, I was like, well, I can either have a harder experience, or I can tell everybody why it's going to be better for them if they choose this. And so, and I did like 2 weeks of casting and then left like a week later because I was one of the last people cast on the show, and I really just had no idea what was going to happen. And the next thing you know, you're just in China, like just they're carrying you around. There's weird stuff too, they put you on the like they shoot all this stuff with the cast before the show, but you're not allowed to talk to each other. So for like 4 days, like you're just around these people looking at them, but there's always somebody there with a camera and always a producer saying like, no talking, no talking. And you like eat dinner, you like carry your bags through Shanghai, like you ride on the train, and everyone's also like kind of like weighing you out, sizing you up, and plotting already. People are trying to like whisper things to each other about alliances, like in the, trying to get ahead of time. It's a really crazy experience, and especially as a young person, kind of being thrust into the real world, what people do to win $1 million.
Yes.
The answer is anything.
That is so crazy. And was it a positive or a negative experience in your life? Like, I mean, now obviously you have a much greater knowledge of reality shows. Like, would you go on a reality show today with the knowledge that you have, or do you think that was something that was perfect for the time in your life back then?
It's actually really nice. They make you talk to like a psychologist, like a therapist or something, like before and after the show as like part of your like cool out, chill out. And one of the things that I always remember talking to her about was, when you're filming, you have your golden hour in the morning and night. They're like two different ones, but you gotta hit these moments. And I was like, man, this is such a cool experience in my life. And I just know that I don't want to be one of those people that spends my whole life just like talking about this one thing. Like, this is my ending. I was like, I want this to be like the start of something amazing for me, because I know that it can be. And it really has. Like, it's weird how such a random thing, like being on a TV show in the jungle, can help you do all these other things in your life that have nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
but
100%.
It's just like sometimes people just need a reason to listen or pay attention, and sometimes that's what does it.
Yes. Putting yourself out there on a national TV show definitely is a great platform for some people. But at the same time, like, I feel like you were ready for that. Like, not everyone would have been ready to be thrust into the spotlight and then like know what to do on the back end. So how soon after Survivor did you eventually make the move to Los Angeles?
It was kind of right afterwards. I think I had this cool opportunity. I went back to my hometown for a little bit, and I was living in Chicago already, so I had a place there, and I was like, okay, should I, like, what do I do? Like, am I gonna go back to school? I had already left to do some work and kind of ditched out on the end of like the semester. Like, I was just sort of like all over the place. And so I randomly ended up out in LA working on a job with what ended up becoming Tempest Freerunning, because I had met Victor on the Madonna tour, and we ended up shooting the K-Swiss commercials with Anna Kournikova. Yep. It was awesome. And we all got along really well. And Levi and some of us, we were doing this APK thing, trying to like build a community. But Victor and those guys definitely knew there was something to do in LA. Like, they're like, we could make stuff happen. So I remember him and Rich King and Levi were driving me back to the airport because I was supposed to go home and try to like see if I could get back into school and not like bail out. And they were like, well, yeah, I mean, we went to school. We probably wouldn't have if we knew like we could be just doing what we're doing now, because it's definitely not doing accounting or whatever.
Totally.
And this is not saying that every kid should just drop out of school, but I definitely called my advisor right then and told them I wasn't coming back, and then called my mom to tell her I had already dropped out of school. And then we went and hustled the set with for Mick G. He was working on he's the dude who shot Charlie's Angels, and he was working on a pilot for this show, Chuck. And we ended up doing that show.
Chuck.
Yeah,
No
it was awesome.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it was like literally went from driving to the airport to flipping a Yui and going to hustling a set, and my whole life was just on a different path. I guess I was already on that path and I just didn't realize it. I thought I was doing something else, and it just escalated. And a lot of that's been the thing for me, is like I thought I knew what I was doing, but even stuff like hosting and commentary, I imagine doing that like down the road, like as an old man, like back in my day. Actually, we've been saying that a lot. Kids these days, but I imagine like talking about that stuff 20 years from now, and instead everything just happens when it happens, and you got to be if you're not ready, then you have to be willing to go with it, because you can't always be prepared for what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. You just have to deal with it and try to make something out of it. That's what the whole world's doing right now, in Tempest, I think that one of the coolest things right now, we were really stoked to start this street tournament series. We did the first one, and it was awesome. We had so much fun. Just a bunch of kids came out, some badass athletes, all different ages, skill levels, threw down. We put up $250, just some cash. That it was literally like the people on hand, just like, yeah, all right, here's what we got. Like, let's just see. And we announced it the day of. And then of course the next month we were supposed to do it. COVID-19 stepped in, and so we did an online one, and it was pretty cool. And next month we're like, we're gonna do it again. This time we're gonna do this whole like voting style, so everybody can vote on their favorites. It's gonna be like versus battles, but in Instagram stories. We're giving out the money again, because we're like, what, our businesses are in a weird spot right now. The gyms are all closed. They're Elon Musk trying to buy up our spaces, because like we're trying to figure that stuff out. But it's like, we can't think about what's not working right now. We have to think about what we can do. And maybe that $250 isn't a lot of money for us. It's just something that we have. But like maybe for some kid out there who's like trying to still hustle his dream, trying to make something happen, like that could really inspire, I don't know, ours to just keep going, to keep building something. Yeah. It's easy to fall back into these places of fear, negativity, whatever it is. Sounds like I sound really California right now, but it's true. It's these moments in our life, I think they're just opportunities for us to reveal who we are, because I kind of think how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you see how this can be an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to make something better, then you can really do that. And if you see it as an opportunity to just hang out and watch Netflix, like, power to you, man. Start a review.
Exactly. There's always some way to flip it, man. I think it's really cool. And I think one of the things that's like really interesting is like, we don't need to delve too far into the actual show, because I feel like a lot of kids won't even know about Jump City, even though they should if you're a parkour kid. But yeah, go look up. I mean, I don't know. Have you been watching these Jimmy the Giant documentaries on YouTube?
I just started to check it out. It's really cool what he's putting together.
So dope. I mean, he just did one on Ultimate Parkour Challenge. I hope he does one on Jump City eventually. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was back then when you were on the show, you were representing the tribe, obviously. And funny enough, you were competing against guys like Levi Muhlenberg, and you were competing against Tempest. At what point did you get the opportunity to officially join Tempest and then become an owner of the company?
It was really a long story, because really after that moment I told you about where I dropped out of school.
Totally, yeah.
We kind of started Tempest there, because we introduced Victor and Rich to Paul Darnell Diddy, who had already kind of started this Tempest idea back in Virginia. And JPK had helped kind of like sponsor him traveling across the country with his buddy to get to LA. because he shot a whole video series about it. We made T-shirts for him. It was really cool. We were, and Didi was the first guy who helped me out when I actually came out to first time to audition for Madonna. I paid my own way to fly out to LA to audition, and they ended up, that's when they booked Zen. And so I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I just crashed with Didi. And that's how I ended up meeting him. And so we introduced all of them, and Tempest started to sort of form like this idea of what it could be. And we were all working together. But at the time, Levi and I were really thinking that we wanted to help build the community around what we were doing. And we were getting a lot of good opportunities. So we ended up sticking with APK and just working with the Tempest guys whenever, the opportunity came up. A lot of their stuff was more West Coast anyway. And there was some really cool stuff. And we had stayed homies the whole time. So when I was living on the East Coast working on that stuff, I actually started dating my now wife, Dina, who was introduced to me by Victor Lopez. He's really given me a lot of great things in my life. I'm very fortunate Victor had dated her twin sister for a while, and they become good friends. And so I came out here really because I'd fallen in love. I'd met this girl, and things with ABK had changed, and my priorities and my interest had shifted. So when I came out to LA, I was helping out with the academies. Actually, the first academy, I'd come out and helped them like roll out the floors because they were just building it at that time. So I started helping with the gyms, and I think when you're around people that you just match energies with, there was Corey and Jesse were working at the gyms at the same time. Then that's when Lucy and everybody were out just like hustling hard. So there's always something happening. Chad was out shooting all, he was the first dude I know who's throwing like reds on glide cams. He's like, he's just like going nuts, always buying the new latest gear. Like that kind of stuff is intoxicating. There's just this creative energy. And so we were all just hustling. And I think especially, at the same time, Corey and Jesse and I got on the team. It was sort of like we had this amazing, with Josh Yaden and, Spider and Friend. It was like the new Tempest or whatever. We had this thing where it was almost like I think we all kind of just already felt like we were, and it was almost like we were just like we're in this space already because it was kind of more like family, and that's where it was at that time. And I think as it kept growing and it kept developing, we were so involved in everything. We really were just making the company a lot of it, because at the time too, like the sort of four original founders, like Gabe and Vic and Rich and everybody were working so much. There was just so many jobs coming in, and that became such a bigger part of what Tempest was doing, because once the academies existed, we could really create a space for every sort of aspect of this, from the rehearsals and the auditions, training, and we're training a lot of actors and stuff. And it was just such a cool time to feel like a part of something. So when I think everybody sort of recognized how much we were already involved, getting us involved as actual owners just made a lot of sense. And we sort of knew this was the family, and we started to make a lot of decisions that would change how the company works, sponsoring international athletes, making our first shoe, opening more academies. It really was a part of, okay, if we're going to build this, where can we actually take this, and how can it grow? And I think my stance as an entrepreneur has always been probably stronger than even my athletic capabilities. So being able to build it, it was the time of social media, like we were like, what do you do with 100,000 followers on Instagram? Like, it's like, that's just a weird thing to think about. We saw the advantages, like after having the gym launch video go viral, like what it did for recognition. It painted a picture in people's minds that they could connect with it in a story. And from there, it was like, what can we do? And that's where stuff like the Pro Takeover came from, because we were just like, what, we want to see this world recognizing pro athletes in the sport in a way that goes beyond just what we can do on a stage for them, and bringing those athletes together, getting everyone here in our sort of like home turf. I think not only inspired all the people that were there, the actual athletes that got to participate. But I think all of LA just like came up in this amazing way around it, because it just like it just brought people in. Like I do think there's always, you know, people, some people train outdoors only, some people you know, on, you know, north side or valley or whatever, you know, people are even between our own Tempest gyms, there's definitely communities around those individual places now because it's so spread out. But God, when you just have that vibe, like, you know, like 50, 60, 100 of the best athletes from around the world in one place, like, God, it's like the literal Olympics, but nobody has, but way less stress, just fun, you know. And those moments are so cool that we get to all like sort of celebrate in those together. And I just hope for more of those to come. I'm definitely missing them right now.
I know.
Yeah.
A lot of nostalgia for those times, sweaty hugs and everything.
Yeah, totally, man. And not to downplay like your involvement in all of these things that we've talked about, obviously, over the last little bit, but I think one of the things that people would probably equate most with parkour, and it was a position that Ubisoft basically created for you, was being the chief parkour officer on a little game called Assassin's Creed, which, you know, for lack of a better term, everyone basically associates as being the parkour game, besides, you know, Mirror's Edge and all that stuff. But what was it like working on Assassin's Creed in that capacity and having a title in a game that's so recognizable as a parkour game, you know? Like, what was that experience like?
It's funny because, you know, I really enjoyed doing mocap work. It's not something I've gotten to do as much of as I like, but it's a really cool thing. And I thought that's what this job was going to be about when they first were talking to us. I was like, oh, shit, yeah, I'm going to work on Assassin's Creed. Hell yeah. But when they really got into it, they're like, no, like, we're creating an experience so people can feel it. Like, we want people to feel the real thing of Assassin's Creed, and we want somebody who can help them understand that. Okay. They're like, we're going to give you this made up title and tell everybody that you're the CPO of the company. I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to definitely do it. Like, this is awesome. And it really turned into this thing where it was just about them showing how much, like, awareness and intention and effort they were putting into the parkour mechanics of this game, how much they care about the way that people move, not just that they recognize that parkour people play the game, but that parkour is one of the reasons why the game is so successful. And so they were like, every time they do a new version of the game, they obviously update the maps, update the moves, update everything, but they also kind of like pick a new focus, because those things are all going to be ported over to the next game and improved on. But each time it's like, okay, this time it's the fighting, this time it's the vehicles, this time it's the maps, and for this one, it was the parkour, and they really did so much to try and see not just like what moves could look cool, but how do they actually work. And you'll see some of the stuff, like, depending on which angle you land on things and what obstacles are around you, you'll naturally like chip off into a reverse fall or go into a different version of the move. And you know, they have a very famous thing there where for the first game they did anything that was over 3 inches wide, you were supposed to be able to interact with it. And it's just an insane amount of detail and energy. And you know this from working in mocap, when you're actually there, when they're like, okay, here's a treasure chest, like, go get on one knee and open it. You do that from like 12 different angles. And then they're like, okay, great. And now run over to it and get down on one knee and open it from 12 different angles. And it's like, there's so much effort that goes into each one of these things. The technology is amazing, but it's still that. Or maybe the worst part about it is the better job you do, the more seamless it is. Like stunts, right? Like, the better job you do, the less somebody recognizes that you were.
Totally. 100%. Yo, that's crazy, man. And now, like, of all of the videos that you've put out over the year, which is crazy because we can actually track videos of you all the way back to like 2007 online. I mean, some of the ones that I remember are like Frosty Saves the Day. You put out Never Here, like, to kind of be like your swan song, so to speak. What video of yours stands out as the most meaningful, or like, is there one that's the most rewarding to look back on and watch?
Yeah, I think that, you know, they all give me something a little different. I remember like years ago, I had done this video called Good Job, and it was the first time I really decided to do something that was different than what I had been seeing. And it wasn't even that different. It was just, I started thinking differently about the tricks. Like I was like, I'm going to do this one where I like just try to take my sunglasses off in the middle of it. And like, I'm going to do this one with like with my hands in my pockets or like whatever. And it got really weird. But it also was a time when I realized like I had that freedom to explore new things. And I think also music affects what you do a lot, or at least me. And it was the first time I'd actually started thinking about the type of energy I wanted behind it. And so I think by the time I got to something like Frosty Saves the Day, I knew I wanted to create something that had a very specific energy around it and looked and felt a certain way. And it was one of those moments too where I had a realization, like I love Group Love, and they're a huge band now, but at the time they were still growing, but they had, you know, a hit song and everything. And we actually got to them by talking to the DJ Gigamesh that remixed their song, and he helped us get the license or to be able to use that Group Love song for it. And it was the energy that you want to feel in your life, and getting everybody involved in it and creating this story that has resonated with so many people. I think it's the thing that people mention the most to me in terms of like my videos and stuff, because I think it's something that it's kind of, in a sense, timeless. You know, you could watch it now and it would be in some sense just as good, because it wasn't about the difficulty of the moves. It was about how they connected to what they were doing. And there's obviously things when I watch it randomly now, or I see somebody's playing it. We play them in the academy sometimes and stuff. I'm just like, oh, I would change that, or I could do this, or I can make that tighter, or whatever, of course. But I'm also like, part of me like thought so much about it when I was making it, that it's more about who I was at that moment, and seeing that person on screen again. Like, I love that person, and I'm so glad that I got to be him, and I'm so excited for who I get to be today. And that's why I got to make Never Here, and it's why I get to continue to work on new creative projects in different ways. And I'm great. I'm excited to see where I go from here.
Hell yes, man. Nah, and we're so lucky that you've kept all of these online for us to see. A lot of people over time take old videos down and wipe them off to try to, you know, cultivate this new image of themselves where they don't even want people to see their old stuff. But I think the coolest thing is that, like, you know, if anyone that's watching this interview wants to see the impact that you've had and how long you've been in the game, just go on your YouTube channel and just watch the catalog of videos, dog. Like, the dates don't lie. You know, you've been here, you've seen this, you've done this, you know.
Man, since early days, 2001, man. It's been a long road, and I'm just so grateful for all the people I've met, all the experiences I've had, and the fact that it's not over yet, that we're all still young, and this sport is still young, and it's got a long way to go.
Totally, man. And one of the things I want to just touch on before we get out of here is like to also inspire the kids is like, not only have you been this fixture within the parkour community for so long, and obviously you're the host of the Red Bull, you've been hosting NAPC since back when it was the Origins challenges, you know what I'm saying? Like, but one of the other things that I want other kids to be inspired by, and something that I really care about a lot, which is the entrepreneurial spirit that exists within this day and age, and the ability to go pursue and chase things that you have ideas about. And now I know that you've started a few different businesses with your wife, from doing, you know, the bag company and now branching into Canyons the Game. Do you want to just let people know exactly like what you guys got working on, and so people can see the other side of Frosty and what's out there?
Yeah, I was really fortunate because my wife, she's an incredible designer. She went to RISD. She's worked in a lot of different industries, but she saw something in me from the work I was doing within the freerunning world, and how it had nothing to do with freerunning. And this stuff I was working on in branding, marketing, and design, I think she was one of the first people who really saw that I could apply that somewhere else. And she was like, you know what, we're going to go into high-end, like handmade luxury travel goods, because that's what she was interested in. And so we started doing it. And you know, I think I blew myself away with how much I didn't realize I had learned from everything I had done, building businesses, starting brands in the parkour world, that I could go to something that had nothing to do with it and create something. And I think from there, I've been able to work on a lot of cool projects. I've been involved in startups in different capacities, because I think I'm so interested and excited about the the way that people bring things into reality. You know, these dreams of ours, they can turn from nothing. You know, my wife's last company, we moved out to New York for a year to work on it. You know, it started off as like literal, you know, like cocktail hour, like just a couple of drinks between friends, and it became multi-million-dollar business. And then it turned into something totally different. And, you know, it's just nuts to think about how much things can change. And with Canyons, I think I recognized something that I was really passionate about, something I cared about, and was trying to find ways to help people do it. And I just started doing it and playing this game with people to get them to basically do what we're doing now, which is get to these moments that you want to get to in the conversation, to connect with the person in a real capacity beyond just the stuff that we feel like sort of sits on the surface layer of everything. And it was something that just grew into us actually, you know, hosting events and doing it, something that was fun, turning into a business. And now, you know, we got enough opportunities to do it. We got to speak at the University of Wisconsin Medical School. We did these awesome creative conference in Marfa, Texas. We're supposed to just be right now in Chicago hosting an event for Soho House, but obviously everything got canceled. But it was really just like creating something that I think we saw something we wanted to have more of in the world. And we saw a way that we could do that, and we facilitated it. And having that understanding that you have the capability to do that, that you have the...
If I could tell people, it's that whatever it is you want to do, there's a way to do it. It may not be easy and it may not be simple, but there's a starting point. And if you can believe in yourself enough to at least take the first step, then pretty much anything is possible. It's just that moment when you decide you can't take the first step, you can't try, that nothing will ever happen. That's the only guarantee. If you don't try it, it's not going to happen. And that's true of anything in life, whether it's starting a business or trying a new trick. If you want to do something, you gotta do it. It's up to you, and that's also a gift because we're capable of so much. You know, so much more than we even realize. Most people don't think they can do a standing backflip, but they're wrong. You know, most people don't think that they are the person to create a business, and you know what? Maybe you're not, but maybe you are, and you're not going to know unless you do what it takes to start one. Which, you know, hey, just Google your idea, see if it already exists. At the very least, you'll find out that you can just get it on Amazon. Maybe that's enough, you know. But at least do the Google search. That's easy. You know, you're going to Google like what to make for dinner anyway. You got time. Just start it, and then who knows where you'll go from there. You know, maybe your great idea is going to lead you to a better idea, or maybe it's going to change the world.
Yeah, what do they say? Like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So yeah, you got to at least try, put yourself out there and stuff. And along the lines of that, what advice would you give to a kid that's sitting at home back in Traverse City right now and is thinking, I want to start parkour? What advice does Frosty Fresh, the 20-year vet, have to a kid that wants to start his own personal parkour journey? Where would he begin?
Squats, probably. I mean, if I'm going to be totally honest, you're probably locked down in home right now, so jump squats is probably a good spot. But really, honestly, I think that's the thing. If you're thinking about getting in parkour, there's a million things that you can jump over. You can watch videos online. You definitely should. There's great ones. Watch anything by Frosty Fresh. It's going to be amazing. But really, it's about building yourself into the kind of person who can do that. And that means taking care of your body. It means being smart. It means being ready for what you're doing, because anybody can walk to the edge and just step off and fall. It takes somebody who knows what they're doing to jump, make it good, and then land without messing themselves up. That's the real part. The landing part is huge, you know. So it's easy to go for something. It's way more valuable and impressive if you can actually be prepared to do something, know what you're doing, and do it on purpose. And so yeah, be safe, kids out there. You know, wash your hands. But yeah, just start doing it. Start getting out there and making it happen, because you can watch videos all day, and I can watch masterclass every day of my life and never poach an egg, but if I don't get out there, if I don't get eggs, if I don't boil the water, I'm not ever gonna start eating breakfast. It's a lot of metaphors going on, you know.
No, totally, man. No, totally. And here's the thing. Before we get out of here, I want to end on one question I ask everyone. And some people may be curious as to why I'm not delving so deep into some of the discussions that probably a lot of people thought I would ask you right now. But I know that you've been featured on a bunch of other dope podcasts like Height Drop with Brandon Douglas, where you talk about a lot of the more stuff related to the parkour scene and where you think it's going and your involvement with, you know, national federations and the Olympics and stuff. So I really wanted to make this more about you and your story. And so I think this is the perfect thing to end on, which I ask everyone. And not everyone has an answer, so we'll see if you do. And that is, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? And where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? And that can either be personal or that can be sport related, but I think it tells a lot about a person to see if they've even thought about this.
Yeah. I mean, I do know one of the things that I've been thinking about, probably on a personal level and also like a bigger scale as kids, you know, the next generation. I mean, we were even talking about it today, just the way the kids are now, but I do think, you know, in the next 5 years, I'm probably going to have at least one, maybe more, who knows. But it's something that makes me think a lot about what am I passing on, what am I building, and what are my priorities? You know, what do I care about most? And I think I've been working towards in the next 10 years. I think what you'll see from me, you know, I've been working on a lot of personal projects and then also helping a lot of people on their personal projects. But I think in 10 years, what I really want to be doing is working on something that brings a lot of people together. And I'm not sure exactly what it looks like yet, but I do think that part of my journey has been going from really trying to build myself to the person I want to be and continue to do that as a part of like a daily practice, but also starting to understand people and how I can help and connect and communicate and be a part of building a better community and, you know, in some sense guiding culture towards things that I believe in. You know, I think I'm right now really interested in the worlds of sustainability, in helping with our planet because it's just, you know, it's suffering. It's been something I've been really passionate about and working on. Actually, my wife's just advising on a new biodegradable underwear company. But there's a lot of cool things going on in the world with people thinking about how we can start to work together to do more, and that we can expect more from all of us. And so you can expect me up there on the game and telling people how it is, you know, and down. I think I'm gonna be a grizzly, you know, sort of most interesting man in the world. Maybe like a little bit more gray in the beard. I might go all white, you know, that like Michael Snow look. Just
Silver Fox.
Yeah. I think maybe suits all the time. 10 years, maybe suits all the time. I got like a few that I rock that.
Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, I have no doubt you'll be successful in whatever thing you venture into over the years. And more than anything, you know, I thank you for your personal contributions to the sport and everything you're continuing to do and continuing to further enhance it and make it evolve. If we didn't have individuals like you that have been a fixture of it for so long, who knows where the sport would be at this point in age. So, you know, thank you, man. Thank you for everything you've done.
Hey, right back at you, dude. Thank you for everything you do, everything you've done for me personally, and even just having this podcast. I know that it brings people together, so we need more of.
Yep, 100, bro. Yo, so before we get out of here, can you just let the people know where they can follow you and stay up to date with Frosty Fresh's life?
Yeah, hit me up on Instagram at Frosty Fresh, yeah, honestly, I really just try to keep it focused on there. So there's always links to everything, to my website, to all the stuff that Tempest Freerunning is doing, everything I got going on with Canyons. There's always links from that Instagram or from frostyfresh.com.
Hell yeah, sounds good, man. And yo, as always, guys, please be sure to hit that like button, comment, subscribe for brand new episodes each and every week. Join us every Monday for Jam Breakdowns and every Friday for brand new JAMCast, interviewing influential members of the movement community like Mr. Frosty Fresh himself. So as always, guys, I got to give a very special thank you to our sponsor, Inner West Hemp. Be sure to visit them online and use the code JAM to save 20% off all your CBD products and needs. I got to give a very special thank you to our guest this week, Mr. Frosty Fresh.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Hell yes. And as always, guys, coming at you, coming through, and sending sincere wishes for health and happiness during this time. I'm your host, Travis Wong. Thanks for joining us here on another JAMCast. Until next time, see you all soon. Peace.